Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Controller's Corner session. My name is Lonnie, and I'm a business solutions consultant with CR Group, implementing training and helping users optimize their use of Dynamics GP and Management Reporter. We've designed this series of free webinars to help Dynamics users take their GP and reporting to the next level. Something we get a lot of interest in is creating unique financial reports and utilizing some of the functionality within Management Reporter. So today's Controller's Corner session is devoted to showing you some small tips and tricks available in Management Reporter for your report creation and viewing. Before we get started, there's a few housekeeping items. Today's presentation will be recorded and will be available on demand later this week on the Controller's Corner site on the CR Group website. We also welcome any questions you have, so please feel free to submit them in the GoToWebinar panel, and I will do my very best to get to them at the end of today's session. And finally, this session counts for a half hour of continuing professional development hours, and we will email an individual certificate to all attendees that joined us today. So here's what's on the agenda. The key items we're going to cover today are as follows. A very brief overview of what Management Reporter is and what it is used for. Then we're going to discuss 12 different tips and tricks that can help you to create reports that will allow you to view your financial data in different and unique ways, and just some little tidbits that will make reporting a little bit more efficient and effective for you. We're going to look at how to the last generated report button, which most people don't know exists. We're going to look at how you can use account categories from GP for creating row definitions for reports. Then we're going to look at how you can create side-by-side reporting. Next, we'll show you how to create a check balance line in your P&L to assist with reconciliation. We're going to show you how to easily identify if you have duplicate accounts in your row definition. You're going to see how you can use what we refer to as attributes in Management Reporter in your column definitions to provide detailed information about transactions. We'll then show you how you can easily create weekly financial reports. After that, I'm going to show you how you can create a rolling 12-month forecast that pulls in a combination of actual data and forecast data from your budgets. We're also going to discuss the automatic underline function in the column headers that drives many of us crazy. And you'll learn how to sort groups of accounts by natural account in your report definitions. And to round out the demo, we'll show you how you can remove the day of the week from your headers when using the date long function in your building blocks. And we will also show you how you can protect your building blocks from being edited by other users. So what is Management Reporter? Management Reporter is the Catalyst financial reporting tool that is included with the purchase of many Microsoft ERP systems, including NAV, AX, and of course, GP. Management Reporter is highly flexible as it allows you to create your own financial reports using a simple building block methodology. It is important to note and understand that Management Reporter is a general ledger-based reporting tool only. This means it does not allow you to pull sub-ledger data as it relates to customers or vendors. However, due to the great drill-down capabilities that do exist for transaction-level details, you can include some information as it relates to vendor and customer data, as it relates to a journal entry in which it originated from. So there is some detailed information in there that comes from the subledger, but it is only a general ledger reporting tool for financial statements. So why don't we hop into Management Reporter and take a look. All right, so the first thing I'm going to show you is a very small item that it's not an exciting item, but it is one that I've come to realize a lot of people don't know exists, and that is what we refer to as the last generated report button. A lot of people will come in and they want to look at a report that they've generated either earlier today or yesterday, and their habit is to come in here and simply generate the report again. And as you know, when you generate a report, it goes through the process of creating the report, which can take a couple of minutes depending on the level of detail that's built into that report. but there's actually a button right beside it. If you hover over it, it actually tells you the last time that this report was generated. And if I click on that, it automatically then generates my report from the last generation date and time that I put in there. In terms of the timing to load the report, it's obviously much faster. So if the data hasn't changed or you haven't made modifications to the actual report or formatting itself, this is a much quicker way to access the most recently generated information without regenerating the report again. The next tip is account categories. So I've come to see through my experience that a lot of people don't use account categories in GP really to their maximum effectiveness, and that they really just throw accounts into whatever random account category they feel is a good fit at that time. And sometimes they don't even really look at it, they just give it an account category. And that's because a lot of people don't truly understand the benefits of using account categories from a reporting perspective, not only within GP, but also within Management Reporter. So when we refer to account categories in GP, it ships with, I think it's 48 out of the box account categories that you can use. And you can also add your own account categories beyond that if these ones are not a good fit for all of your accounts. But the benefit in having that function is if I go into my row definition, when I'm creating reports in here, you'll notice that I'm actually using account category as the driver for my line items. And when you double click on this, I can see here are my account structures. This is all the segments of my account. But account category is almost treated like a separate segment that you can report through. There is one major benefit in using account categories, and that is it requires a lot less maintenance at the reporting level. Whenever you're creating reports or row definitions using the main account, what ends up happening is every time you add a new account to the system, you actually then have to come into all of your row definitions that require that account to be added and add it into the row definition. When you're using account categories, as long as the account category already exists, then it's actually just adding that account to that account category, which is already in your report. So then you don't have to come into each of your row definitions and continue to modify. So from a maintenance perspective, it is a much more efficient way to maintain reports. As long as you're categorizing your accounts correctly within GP, this is a very easy way to sort of build your reports, and especially balance sheets. I find building a balance sheet through account categories is probably the most effective way to build them. So tip number 3 is what I refer to as side-by-side reporting. And again, a lot of people don't know that you can do this, and it is actually a really nice way to view your reports, keeps them kind of clean looking, especially if you have a lot of content in your reports, if you have a lot of accounts or a lot of groupings that you like to subtotal. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my side-by-side report so you can see the view. So this is my side-by-side balance sheet. So rather than the entire report basically running down my page, I've created a side-by-side view. Looks clean, it keeps things sort of condensed, makes things easier to view on one page. And the way I've done that is if I go into my row definition, in the format codes there is an option for a column break. So I've inserted in my format code a column break using this insert column break where I want the side-by-side column break to be. So it basically inserts a break in between that point and puts the remaining numbers from below in a separate column beside my first section. So again, keeping things clean and streamlined and helping you view things sort of on a one page as opposed to scrolling to the bottom of the page to see the remainder of the information for your groupings and accounts. You will notice there are also, there's tons of format codes in here. There's also a page break in here. So if you'd rather insert page breaks to break things up, you can do that as well. So the next item is a check balance. So as you all know, identifying when your balance sheet is out of balance is a pretty simple thing. However, knowing if something is wrong or missing with your income statement is definitely a little bit more challenging. So one of the things we generally recommend is what we call a check balance line. So if I go into my income statement and I open up the row definition, at the very bottom of this report, I can put in a check balance. And basically what that means is I'm going to put in a totals or a total income line using all of my income accounts as a range. So I'm basically going to take all of my naturals that range from, say, 4,000 all the way to 999. And I'm saying that because generally when we create a chart of accounts on our end is we say 4,000 is where your revenue starts and your expenses usually end at the 999 component if you're not using unit accounts. So we're basically saying let's just pick up everything that's considered a P&L account, a revenue or expense account. But I don't want this line to actually show on my report. So using the print control, I'm going to make this a non-printing row. It's there specifically just to create a calculation so we can make sure that this net income line is picking up everything in our report. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put in a check balance line. And to do that, I'm going to put in check balance, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this red and I'm going to bold it because I want it to really show up in the event there is an out of balance. And I'm going to basically create a calculation here that's going to take my net income number from my total income number and see what the result ends up being. So what I want to do now in my print control in this case is I want to put in an X0, which says suppress rows if all zeros, meaning that if I'm balanced, this line should not actually print on my report because it would net to 0. However, if I do have an out of balance, this line is going to show up and it's going to show me what my out of balance is. Okay, so we're going to save this and we're going to go and generate this report and see if I am in fact out of balance. So as you can see, when we go to generate a report, the system has to queue the report and pull all the information. What you'll notice is sometimes when you're running detail levels up down to the transaction level, it does take longer to generate reports within the system. So this is where that last generated report button can come into play and sort of help you with effectively running reports a little faster. So here we go. Here's my check balance. So it looks like to me at this point I am currently out of balance. So I need to figure out where I'm missing accounts and make adjustments to my row definition to fix that. So had this been 0, this line would not have shown on my report. Sometimes out of balances can be related not only to missing accounts, but perhaps duplicate accounts. Maybe you've added an account various times to a report. So another thing you can do within Management Reporter is in the output and distribution of your report definition, there is a tick box that says report duplicate accounts. And so in doing that, when I generate a report using the Management Report Viewer, I can actually go in and take a look at a report that gets generated to tell me if I in fact have any duplicates in my report. And this is found under the View menu. And you'll see there is an option called Duplicate Accounts. So if I click on this, I will see I have duplicate accounts that are showing in various lines. So in here, I have them showing in my 160 and 1120 for these accounts, and I have them showing in 340 and 1120 in these accounts. So again, if you have duplicates that are running through the system, you'll be able to identify perhaps where those duplicates exist so that you can make those corrections on your row definition and remove them from the rows that they don't belong in. One of the great things about Management Reporter, as I referred to earlier, is that while it does not report on subledger data, it does allow you to draw some information from your subledger as it relates to journal entries and descriptions. And the way you can do that is by adding what we refer to as attributes into your column definition. So if I click into my column definition, you're going to see I have these attribute columns, and where that's found is when I click on the column type, you'll see there's a type called attribute. And what then happens is it opens up a list of attribute categories that are available for me to select from. So you can see there is a very wide array of pieces of information that you can use within your reports in Management Reporter to get additional information about those individual transactions. So in this case, I've put in what they refer to as the master record name, and what they're saying there is the record being either the customer name or the vendor name, or if you're using payroll, the employee name, anything that comes from what we refer to a card or master record. And I've also added in some document numbers so that we can see what the invoice number may have been if it's a vendor transaction or a customer invoice that's issued. I've put in what module it's coming from within the system. Is it coming from payables? Is it coming from sales? And I've also put in a transaction description. So where we enter descriptions and references within journal entries, we can also populate those. This is very powerful because when people are looking at transactions in Management Reporter, they may not remember what that transaction was for. So by populating this information when you're entering transactions in GP, you do actually have the ability in Management Reporter to draw that information out. So very powerful capabilities there in order for you to sort of analyze and understand your data when you're looking at it from a reporting perspective. So I'm going to go into my report again that I had generated, and I'm going to click my last generated report. And I'm basically then going to take a look at some of the line items that are in here. So in my salary expense, if I double click on this, it drills down to the account level. Now you'll notice my attributes are not actually appearing at this point, and that's because attributes are related to the transaction level data only. So when I'm at the high level on the financial side, I don't see those attributes. When I go to the account level, I still don't see those attributes. However, when I drill down to the third level of transaction, I can now see those attributes across the top of my page. So in this case, I'm looking at salaries coming from payroll. I can see who each employee is, what the document or check number that was issued for their payroll, and what the description was that was populated by the system because I didn't populate one myself. So these were payroll computer checks that were issued. So again, lots of really powerful information exists within the attributes and the drill down to transaction, but the good news is they don't clutter up your report at this end with useless information. They're only showing you that at the transaction level. Another really neat tool within Management Reporter is the ability to take a look at weekly components. So a lot of people say, well, Management Reporter is great, but I can only look at it from a whole month perspective and see what's happening in that month. And while that's true in some cases, you do actually have the ability to take a look at trends that may have occurred over a week span within a period. So, you know, there are certain businesses that like to look at busy seasons as it relates to weekly periods within a month. For instance, a lot of retail people would probably want to look at how their sales have compared in Boxing Week from year to year. So in a case like that, I could go in and take a look at this report, and what's great about this is I can actually then see what my results were from week to week in the month. So in this case, I have a 4-week branch that I've pulled across, and I can see what my sales and returns and discounts may have been in each individual week in the month of January. So again, for a retail environment that may be looking at Christmas and they want to see, well, how did we do Boxing Week this year versus last year, they could build some comparatives around that. So an awesome feature that's available, and how you can create that look is using the functions at the bottom of your column definition. There are these start and end date fields. So the nice thing about the start and end date field is it's basically just a count. So you would basically put the number of days you want to start from. So I want to start from the first day of the period, and I want to end on the 8th, and then on the 9th to the 16th, etc., and you can build it across. So again, as long as it's in the period, you can actually stretch it so it could be 5-day increments, it could be 2-week increments. You can build it however you want to sort of look at the trends and analysis from your side that makes sense for your business model. One of my favorite reports that I used to use as a controller is a 12-month rolling forecast. And what's powerful about this report is when you're forecasting, people want to understand what the results are actually at that point in time, and then continue on to understand what it looks like with the remaining forecast for the year. So when we generate a report like that, this is sort of what it looks like. And so I'm going to actually show you 2 tricks in one in this case. So what you'll notice is in this case, I have created a report and it's showing me my actuals from January to April. And in this case, I'm now looking at May to December as my forecast. So you're probably wondering, how the heck did you do that? So what I did is in the column definition, you can actually create some print controls that drive all of this information. So in the print control feature, there are some conditional prints found at the bottom. And so in this case, I can tell the system, I only want you to print this column if the period I'm running for is equal to or less than the base period that's here. Okay, so it's reading the report definition period I'm running the report from and comparing it to the base period I've put in here. So you'll notice there's a ton of columns in here, and it's because I have a column for each actual and each forecast month so that the system knows for the actuals, only show the actual if the period is less than or equal to the period I'm running the report from for the base. But for my forecast, I flipped it around. I'm saying you only want to print this if it's greater than the base period. So if my report period that I'm running for is greater than the reporting period in the base, then it's going to print the forecast column and not the actual. So I'm telling the system which columns for which period to print. In addition to that, the header thing is a feature that a lot of people are not aware of. So I was able to create separate headers using that same function so that you can identify which section of your report based on the period you're running for is actuals and which is forecast. And how I've done that is using the header at the top, you can actually spread your headers from B to base, being that base period. So based on the period I'm running it for, I'm saying run it from column B to the base period in which the actuals are being run for. Forecast is similar, but I'm saying run it from base +1, so the next period from the period I'm running from, all the way to column Y, which is the very last one at the end. Okay, so that's how you can create a 12-month rolling forecast with appropriate headers across the page to identify. This is a great tool. It's a great report. I know that many people are not aware on how to create something like this. So if you'd still like some assistance on that, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to help you build your own rolling forecasts and budgets. One of the things you'll notice in my report as well, and I did this on purpose, and you're probably thinking, sure you did, is there's these underlines in here. So one of the things by default within Management Reporters, when you create a column header, it automatically creates an underline. And this drives a lot of people crazy because they don't necessarily want each of these underlined in all of your headers for all of your reports, especially when you have multiple headers happening at any given time. So there is actually a tool in the options menu where you can take that off so that it doesn't actually create an automatic underline when you create new headers. And so if you go into the tools section and you go to options, there is a little box that says automatically apply cell underline and column headers. If you untick that box in your setup, it will no longer apply an automatic underline to your column headers, but rather you can apply the underline where you see it's necessary or see fit for formatting. If this is ticked, it means that anytime you create a header, it's automatically going to underline it for you. So then you have to go and take them off. So I find adding them where I want them is a lot faster, so I suggest removing that if you don't care for underlines in your headers. Another great feature within Management Reporter is the ability to sort by natural or main segment on grouped reports. And what I mean by that is you'll notice that many of my accounts give you the ability to drill down to the account level. And sometimes you want to be able to group accounts together based on their naturals, not necessarily based on the first segment of the account if that's not your natural account. So there is actually a way in your report definition to sort your drill down of accounts by natural or by a segment. So if I go into the Settings tab, there is an Other button down here at the bottom. And if I go to Account and Transaction Detail, there is a checkbox here that allows me to sort by natural or main segment. So where this becomes handy is, as I mentioned, is if natural is not the first segment of your account, which is the case for many, many customers that we have, they want to actually be able to sort by the natural, not necessarily by the first segment. So this gives you the ability to do that so that when you're drilling into the account level detail, you'll actually see them by natural as opposed to by department or division or whatever the first segment of your account may be. So another thing that I kept here on purpose in my report is you'll notice in my header I have this as at Sunday, April 30th, 2017. This drives a lot of people bonkers because nobody really cares what day it is. They just want to see what the end of the month is when they're looking at positional statements or end of period statements. And so you can actually get rid of that function in Management Reporter, and it's actually done through your system settings. So where that's coming from is because in the headers and footers, we're actually using the at period coverage at date long. So the long date already automatically is including the day. And where that actually comes from is your computer system settings. So in my control panel, I can actually go to the region setting, and I can change this long date to take out the day of the month so that it doesn't show that anymore. It's actually then only showing me the actual numbered day as well as the month and year. So this will allow you to then generate your reports using the long date, as most people want to see it, but without the day showing up, the day of the week. So finally, what I'd like to show you before we wrap up today is after you've done all this very hard work of creating your columns and your rows for some very unique reports that you may want to use, you'll probably want to be able to protect some of those so that people don't go in and inadvertently change some of the columns and rows that you've created. And so you can actually do that. You can protect your reports, you can protect your columns, you can protect your rows. And the way that simply works is there is a little protection box up at the top. And when I click that box, it allows me to set a password for it. So it means people can still come in and view it. They can even come in and click Save As and give it a new name and then start to modify it. But they can't actually modify that component and save it without the password. So again, just making sure that if you've taken some time to really create rows and columns that are a little more time-consuming and unique to your needs, that nobody goes in there and sort of plays around with them and changes them without your knowledge. So those are some of the tips and tricks that I wanted to show you today. A couple of other things I'll touch on is there are some other functions available in Management Reporter. At the end of the month, it's likely that you have several reports that are part of your monthly reporting package. And a lot of people habitually go in and they run each report separately. But you actually can create report groups in Management Reporter and generate all your reports together simultaneously. In the web viewer, they actually appear in separate boxes that you can then click on and view for quick, easy access views of your reports rather than looking at them individually. So this is a really neat feature. If you're not familiar with this, again, feel free to reach out to us and we can provide you some more details on how to set up report groups. It's really easy, I promise. And then finally, the report scheduling is another great feature within Management Reporter. It actually allows you to schedule reports to run at specified intervals of time, being weekly or monthly. They can even be scheduled on a relative day of the month. For example, for month-end reporting, if your reports are to be completed by the second Friday of the month, you can actually set them to run on the second Friday of every month at midnight, so that the reports are generated. All you click is that last generated report button that I showed you, and it's going to give you that information automatically. So you don't have to wait through the queue of your reports running. So that, I guess, brings me to any questions that may have been entered into the panel. And I'm just going to look here to see if there are any questions. I don't see any specific questions related to Management Reporter at this time. So I'll give everybody a second and just see if there's any questions that come up. And while I do that, I'll basically throw this up here just so you know that CR Group does develop many of its own add-ons for Dynamics GP products. So if you're looking for anything that you may need in terms of adjustments, feel free to take a look at some of the add-ons that we have developed here at CR Group. Okay. At a recent GPUG meeting, several users indicated that categories do not work with MR. Any truth to this? Not that I'm aware of. I've used account categories with many customers in terms of report building. The biggest problem that I have found with account categories is that people actually aren't assigning proper account categories to their accounts when they set them up. So it looks like the reports are not coming across correctly, but it's actually due to the fact that accounts aren't being categorized correctly. So there is sometimes with clients some cleanup involved in making sure that accounts are being grouped properly to use them on the reports, but to my knowledge, we've never had any issues using them to create reports. So I think that's all the questions that I got. So I would like to again extend a thank you to everyone for joining us today. I really hope you found this helpful in providing some tips to help create professional and unique financial reports. A reminder that you will receive a certificate this week to mark your professional credit hours. This session was valid for a half hour. Also, if you haven't already, please be sure to check out our other upcoming Controllers Corner sessions on our website, crgroup.com/controllers-corner. And finally, a survey should appear after the webinar today, so please take a minute to provide your feedback so we can work to keep improving these sessions moving forward. And thank you again. Please reach out to anyone here if CR Group can assist you in getting more of your Dynamics GP and Management Reporter systems. We're always happy to help. And have a wonderful day.